Hello, traders. Wanted to go over some opportunities that we had on LGVN the past couple of days. Um, all the drawings are going to look weird when I do this, but you'll see why. If we go to an hourly chart, we see that just a few days ago this stock was in the 284 range, and it just went insane. So we played it these couple of days. This day was wild, and but I wanted to talk about specifically this day because too often we focus on these moves, and the sell-off is pretty common. So what do you do the day after? At what point do you start playing it again? How do you do that? Because we've seen it with, I know, GameStop and GMC and all those, or AMC rather, not GMC, AMC. You'll see these spikes, and then what happens later? Do they ever recover? And if not, then what? And so that's interesting. And so that's really what today is almost about, is how do you play the few days following massive moves? I mean, from 8 to 10 to 45, 50 is pretty good movement. So how do you play that? And so let's go back to the minute chart, and we'll start off with right off the gate. And so the day before today really wasn't too much signs of interest. This was a little interesting, but pretty much stayed below the 200 all day. At the end of the day, there was a little more momentum, and then into the evening, that could be a good signal that today may be interesting, but nothing too definitive. But then as we start off, we see quite a bit of cluster here, and then the breakout, and it actually broke out and halted right here. So we started talking about it in the group, showing you what levels it needs to be above. And so that's what we called out, 2083. And by this time, obviously, it's above that, but that's really the level that we were focusing on. And so if you were paying attention to it, and it's worth paying attention to these the next couple of days, just to keep them, at least if you got space on the screen, it's worth having. But just looking at the initial move, we see, reading from bottom to top, we see momentum positive. We see the TTM going bull. We see a nice upward movement. I typically don't play within the first 10 minutes of market open. I've seen too many things line up like this and then go the other way. So I'd rather take the less risky approach personally. And so this is where we mentioned it. It pulls back down, and then it touches this 8. It kind of follows the 8 a little bit, so you have multiple buying opportunities should you want to get in along this. And then we see some candle wicks right above the 27.95, and clearly we see 27.74 is the resistance. 30.42 is above that. So as we see that level right here really only had weakness above it, only those wicks, we saw that maybe it's time to take profits. If you're paying attention to your lowers, we're seeing weakening on both lowers, and so those are something to pay attention to. But we don't write the stock off altogether. We're still paying attention to it, and so there's a nice selling arrow right there. And so, if you just did the basics, there's a buy arrow here and a sell arrow here. And I'm not saying all the green arrows are buy arrows, but as you notice, they start lining up and things like that. They are better buying signs, but it's still below the 200, so I wouldn't have expected the more experienced ones to buy that one. And so we see it come down. Now the solid purple line on my chart's the VWAP, and it gets respected here, kind of pulls below it a little bit. And here's some trader psychology. This is the average price weighted by volume, and so as the volume increases, the weight of that candle for that price increases as well. And so there's quite a bit of volume here, which is why you get such a drastic spike. Quite a bit of volume here, and not so much volume here. So that's kind of why you see this more flatlining. And so you can see how some people started selling off, and it came to the price that the average person of all of this had, and then it kind of starts going back up. And so if you're a bear, that's not a good sign. And so imagine you're short this position right here, and it starts trailing down. You're pretty excited, but then it bounces off of that. Maybe you close your position and take your money, and then as it gets to this candle, you're probably getting pretty nervous. And then as you see this movement right here, that's when you see a lot of the shorts closing their position. And so moving on to some of the next updates. Here we have 2415. That's the hold number that we had. 2415, and then the following ones. And so looking at where that's at, we got 2415. So we know that the hold number's pretty low. And so as it comes down and plays around here, you'll actually notice that it stays pretty well. It actually follows our 34 right here. And so it broke below the 21, but it held the 34 pretty well. And so right here we look again, we see a little bit of upward momentum. The TTM's going from bearish to bullish. We see that it's adhering to the EMAs or the EMAs in the order that we like, in which it was the slower EMAs are below the faster. We have the VWAP below where we're looking at, and so anything right in here would have been a good price. Now once you start getting too high, then that's what we call the extended from the 8 EMA, and that's not something we like doing either, because if you bought here, well, imagine you're this guy, and you're real nervous right around here. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. Fortunately, it popped back up, but you're not guaranteed that, and so that's why purchasing away from the 8 can get you pretty well messed up. And so we saw that it went 3250, and so 3250 is right here. That was the last resistance level that we gave. So then we looked and we gave even higher ones, and then about right around here, right around here we see these couple wicks getting real close to each other, right around that 35. And so reading this, you see it a nice upper wick, but then it fails. Tries it again, fails. And then so if you're looking right in here, you see this double top right here. Let me just confirm that. 34, 38, 34, 39. Yeah, pretty close. So you see that. You see that this is almost nothing by this point. Certainly not what it was. And so maybe at that point you do take your money again. And so if you bought anywhere along the 8, let's say you bought around here, 28 for easy math, and then right around here to 34 if it starts falling again, 33 if you waited. So 28 to 33 is $5 a share. That's, in our group, that's a week's worth of work. So well done. This arrow, green up arrow, but let's take a look at the whole picture. What do we have? We have negative. The EMAs are in good position. We're above the VWAP, but we also just saw quite a big move here. So maybe we don't just bet on the continuation when these are negative. And then we see it trail down a little bit. Then it kind of just goes sideways for a while, which this was pretty well expected to die off. And notice when it really does die off is when we have the 200 SMA. And once it finally gets below that, it tried here and then it came back up. It really takes a dive on us. But we kept looking at it. Still well above the pre-market high. We know that the pre-market high was right around in here. So we pay attention to it. I actually want to know the exact. So that's 23.38. And then look at this. Where's 23.38? Right there. 23.39, if you will. And so we see that it tried to break it, and then it gets real close. Then we have this green arrow. Now, we don't like this as a buy signal. Not this one in particular. We like this. This is nice, but below the 55, below the VWAP, below the 200 SMA, we don't love it. And so if you did play a little riskier, maybe you purchased right in here. It worked out this time, but it's not always guaranteed to work out. You're much better off maybe waiting right into here where you have a little bit of the pullback to the 8 and then a nice steady rise up. And so this part of the move would be pretty tough to hit because right here you're still under the 55. You pass the 55 here, you're below these two. These are pretty macro. And so, but then once you get above here, then you're pretty far away from the 8. And so if you're a good patient trader, then that's how you play that. 28.09 is that hold number that we had, and we got that at 12:30. We got that back here, and we knew that it was below that pretty much the whole time up until 20 minutes or so, and then it pops it, and then that's when we have this run. So maybe a nice little buying opportunity in there. We see some overall weakness with all these candle wicks, no bodies getting above those numbers. Let's look at the actual 29.90, 33.26, 35, 36. $40, $41, $42, $25, $45. $42.25 look like there'd be a resistance level right in there, right? That's what this was saying. $42.25. So once again, looking at that, $42.25, and other groups wouldn't have this. They wouldn't have been told that this is going to be a resistance level, and here it is, played out. So you start seeing it failing it, you can kind of plan accordingly. And so once you start seeing the weakness around those levels, then maybe you go back to scalping and take what you were given. And so a move like that would be, let's say you got around here $33 to $42.25. Again, nice move, really nice move. And all of 13:30 to 13:40, so 10 minutes or so. That's a good deal if you can do that. And then another one that I like to see is here at the end of the day, we see a nice push back up again into the 45, which it hit. Now, what I want you to know is that this is really important. So that candle, the high was 45.50. So as I was watching this going on, I wanted 45, but I knew that if we touched 45, we really needed to see this level broken. And so it was close, but it didn't do it. And so look what happened. I'll do a 10-minute chart. So we see this pull, and at that point it just kind of tapers off through the rest of the day. Now maybe that time period showed potential, something right here, but once you see, like I said, something right here, you may have been able to play that if you were quick about it. But man, once it got back below that 200, I mean, what do you do with a stock like that? So that was just how I read different things like this. It gets pretty congested with all these. Get rid of them. Once again, I look at a buying opportunity here, really like that. Kind of turns into quite a bit. But that's if you're playing right off the beginning of the day. This is kind of interesting. Everyone wants to know why we don't recommend buying down here. Well, you're not guaranteed. If we look over here, you know, that's kind of like buying right here. You think it's going to explode, but you're not guaranteed. And so, hope you all enjoy these types of videos and kind of understanding someone who's read these charts for a while and how they interact, their kind of perspective on it, and seeing how I read it. Maybe that will help you. If you do have questions, reach out. You know, we're here to help, and we want to see you do really, really well. So have a great day.